Everything you thought you
Let's
knew
make
about
healthy
healthy eating,
choices.
how your body gets energy, and even your own cravings is a
A
perfectly
balanced diet,
orchestrated lie.
carefully.
For over
Here's the
60
next
years,
one.
the sugar
Got it.
industry and
Gentlemen, the
multinational
data
food
is clear.
conglomerates
I
have
agree. The
quietly
implications are
executed the
An
most
orderly
massive
movement
public
towards
health
food resources,
manipulation in human
illustrating
history.
organized.
They have spent
The
billions of
research
dollars to
materials.
buy off researchers,
Excellent. Let's review
twist
the
global
dietary
nutritional
choices, a
guidelines,
mid-century
shift
guide.
all the
Fat
blame onto
is out.
dietary
Sugar
fat,
is.
and turn a highly inflammatory toxin into the foundation of your daily diet. As a result, we are living through an epidemic of metabolic disease, cognitive decline, and premature aging, all while dutifully chewing on granola bars labeled heart healthy. It is time to rip the sweet, deadly wrapper off this industry. Here are 42 massive lies about sugar that tricked an entire generation. 1. You have been told that saturated fat is the primary culprit behind heart disease and clogged arteries. You believe that to protect your heart, cutting out fatty meats, butter, and eggs is an absolute requirement. For half a century, doctors, medical associations, and government food pyramids have relentlessly warned us to strictly follow a low-fat diet. That is a historical lie bought and paid for with cold, hard cash. Modern science has proven that refined sugar is public enemy number one for your heart. When you consume too much sugar, your liver converts the excess into triglycerides, causing severe inflammation in your blood vessels and creating the perfect environment for plaque to form. In the 1960s, the Sugar Research Foundation, or SRF, bribed prestigious Harvard scientists with the modern equivalent of $50,000 to publish literature that shifted the blame entirely onto fat while whitewashing sugar. Turns out, your plate of buttery eggs wasn't killing you, but the healthy glass of fruit juice next to it was the real assassin. 2. You believe that eating something sweet will give you an immediate burst of energy to work efficiently. You view biting into a chocolate bar as the ultimate life hack to fight off the 3 p.m. slump. Energy drink commercials, candy packaging, and even advice from coworkers all claim that sugar is the fastest fuel for your body and brain. In reality, it is a high-interest energy loan that you are guaranteed to default on. Sugar does immediately raise your blood glucose, but it also triggers your pancreas to pump out a massive amount of insulin to clean it up. The sudden blood sugar crash that follows leaves you feeling exhausted, lethargic, brain-fogged, and hungrier than before you took a bite. This concept originated from mid-20th century candy advertising campaigns aimed squarely at long-shift workers, convincing them that sugar was a cheap way to stay awake on the assembly line. So, that chocolate bar didn't actually fuel you. It just drained whatever life force you had left for the day. 3. You have been told that 100% pure fruit juice is the pinnacle of nutrition and completely harmless. You juice a whole basket of apples and oranges every morning, thinking you are drinking pure, liquid vitamins. From mommy bloggers to lifestyle magazines, everyone elevates fruit juice as the ultimate symbol of a healthy morning routine. The truth is, your liver literally cannot tell the difference between that juice and a can of Coca-Cola. When you juice fruit, you completely strip away the fiber, the only thing that slows the absorption of sugar into your bloodstream. A single glass of apple juice contains as much, if not more, fructose than a soda, delivering a devastating blow directly to your liver. This habit was entirely manufactured in the 1920s, when California fruit growers faced a massive orange surplus and hired PR experts to invent the concept of the mandatory morning glass of orange juice to move product. You are basically paying a 10 times premium for a fatty liver risk served with a pretty paper straw. 4. You believe the rule that eating multiple small meals a day will boost your metabolism. You constantly snack on energy bars or dried fruit to make sure your body never goes hungry. Fitness magazines and mainstream nutritionists have preached the 6 meals-a-day rule as absolute gospel for weight loss. This strategy is actually the fastest biological way to lock your fat stores entirely shut. Every time you eat, especially anything containing carbohydrates or sugar, your body is forced to release insulin. Constant snacking keeps your insulin levels chronically high. And since insulin is the fat storage hormone, your body completely loses the ability to access and burn stored fat. This myth was heavily funded and spread by the snack food industry, who realized their profits would vaporize overnight if people went back to eating just 3 standard meals a day without grazing. Ironically, your attempt to keep the metabolic fire burning is the exact bucket of water putting your fat loss out. 5. You think that products labeled sugar-free or made with diet sweeteners are a protective talisman for your health. You happily chug diet soda, believing that 0 calories means 0 consequences. Endocrinologists and major health organizations have publicly recommended that diabetics switch to artificial sweeteners to control their blood sugar. Your brain and body are not easily fooled by those 0-calorie marketing claims. When your tongue tastes the intense sweetness of aspartame or sucralose, your brain prepares for a massive caloric influx and can still trigger an insulin response despite the lack of actual sugar. Worse, recent studies show these synthetic sweeteners actively destroy your gut microbiome, increase insulin resistance, and paradoxically make you crave real sugar even more. The chemical food industry capitalized on sugar fears in the 1980s to push these alternatives, burying early studies about their side effects to dominate the massive diet market. Thinking you escaped the sugar trap, you just willingly locked yourself inside a chemical laboratory. 6. You have been told that sugar from organic honey or maple syrup is vastly superior and healthier than white sugar. You generously pour it over your oatmeal and think you are eating a deeply nourishing meal. Whole food influencers, holistic chefs, and wellness bloggers constantly emphasize using these natural sweeteners instead of refined ones. Your liver cannot read expensive marketing labels. Whether it is a $15 jar of raw honey or dirt-cheap table sugar, by the time it reaches your small intestine, it is all broken down into the exact same glucose and fructose. Honey does contain trace antioxidants, but the massive payload of sugar that accompanies them triggers a systemic inflammatory response that completely neutralizes any minor benefit. The natural food industry masterfully hijacked the concept of unprocessed to mark up honey and syrup by 500%, preying on modern consumers' desperation for anything natural. At the end of the day, a premium spoonful of sugar adds fat to your waistline at the exact same speed as a cheap one. 7. You believe that your brain requires sugar to function and think clearly. You feel like you get brain fog and can't focus unless you have a sweet treat during a stressful workday. The concept of sugar as brain food is literally printed in old biology textbooks and repeated by teachers and parents everywhere. Your brain absolutely needs energy, but it runs much sharper and cleaner without refined sugar in the mix. While the brain uses glucose, your body is perfectly capable of synthesizing all the glucose it needs from protein and fat through a process called gluconeogenesis, without you needing to eat a single grain of sugar. The reality is that the blood sugar spikes and crashes from eating sweets are the actual cause of neuron damage and brain fog. This myth is the result of twisting basic physiology, heavily amplified by the candy industry in the 1980s to justify office snacking. Turns out, biting into a candy bar to get smarter is just a really bad excuse for feeding an addiction. 8. You are absolutely convinced that breakfast cereal is a perfect, nutrient-dense start to your day. You pour milk over a bowl of colorful loops and trust you are giving your body essential vitamins. Government media campaigns and product boxes always feature healthy athletes eating cereal to prove its miraculous nutritional value. Your morning bowl of cereal is actually just a bowl of dessert, wearing a clever disguise. Most commercial cereals, even those marketed as whole grain, go through a high-heat extrusion process that destroys natural nutrients before being coated in a massive shell of sugar. They cause your blood sugar to violently spike the second you wake up, throwing your entire endocrine system into a state of panic before 8 a.m. The cereal breakfast standard was invented by John Harvey Kellogg in the late 19th century to supposedly suppress sexual urges. But corporations later dumped tons of sugar into the recipe to hook children. Good morning! You just kick-started your day by injecting yourself with a potential dose of prediabetes. 9. You think that working out hard can completely offset the damage of a sugar-heavy diet. You tell yourself, I'll just run an extra 30 minutes on the treadmill to burn off this boba tea. Fitness influencers constantly post photos of themselves eating pizzas and massive desserts because they train like beasts. You can never, ever outrun an inflamed liver. Sugar isn't just excess energy waiting to be burned off. The fructose goes directly to your liver, causing inflammation, damaging mitochondrial function, and breaking your leptin satiety hormone. Even if you burn off every single calorie, the cellular damage caused by the sugar remains entirely intact and accumulates daily. Coca-Cola famously funded the Global Energy Balance Network, GEBN, with millions of dollars to spread the lie that obesity was solely caused by a lack of exercise, perfectly deflecting blame from their sugary drinks. So you are sweating your soul out on a treadmill, while your money and your belly fat keep flowing directly to the beverage conglomerates. 10. You have been told that, as long as you consume it in moderation, sugar is absolutely nothing to worry about. You believe everything is fine as long as you control your portions. The slogan, "Moderation is key," is repeated by every mainstream health expert as a safe, universally acceptable mantra. The problem is that refined sugar hijacks your brain chemistry exactly like a narcotic, making biological moderation completely impossible. Functional MRI brain scans reveal that sugar activates the brain's reward center and releases dopamine just as powerfully as cocaine. When you eat sugar frequently, your dopamine receptors become numbed, forcing you to eat larger, sweeter amounts just to achieve the exact same baseline feeling of satisfaction. The food industry carefully borrowed the drink responsibly strategy from the alcohol industry to blame your weak willpower instead of admitting the highly addictive nature of their product. They tell you to eat in moderation, but engineer their foods so your brain literally screams for more. 11. You think fruit on the bottom yogurt is a fantastic light snack for your digestion and physique. You regularly reach for those little cups of strawberry or blueberry yogurt at the store. Advertising campaigns relentlessly portray fruit yogurt as your gut's best friend and an immunity booster loaded with billions of probiotics. A single cup of commercial fruit yogurt usually contains more sugar than a cream-filled chocolate cookie. Sugar is added aggressively to mask the natural sourness of the lactic acid and to extend the shelf life of the cheap industrial fruit jam. The worst part is that this massive sugar payload acts as the perfect fertilizer for candida and bad bacteria, actively destroying the very probiotics you were trying to consume. Dairy conglomerates took a traditional, healthy, fermented Balkan food and bastardized it into an industrial dessert in the 1970s to capture a broader market. You thought you were nourishing the good bacteria, but you actually just threw a massive buffet for the bad ones. 12. You believe that your weight loss plateau and growing belly are simply because your metabolism naturally slows down with age. You accept that gaining weight after 30 is just a tragic law of nature. Women's health magazines and even family doctors routinely use age and genetics as the scapegoat for stubborn belly fat. The real culprit isn't time. It is chronic insulin resistance caused by a lifetime of eating hidden sugars. Decades of sugar consumption make your cells deaf to insulin's signal, forcing your pancreas to pump out more and more of it. Because insulin is the hormone that locks fat cells shut, having chronically high levels means your body will fiercely hold on to visceral belly fat no matter how much you starve yourself. The slow aging metabolism theory is a brilliant shield that allows packaged food manufacturers to avoid responsibility for wrecking an entire generation's endocrine systems. You aren't getting fatter because you are getting older. You are getting fatter because your body is exhausted from processing garbage. 13. You have been told that high fructose corn syrup, HFCS, is significantly more toxic than regular cane sugar. You meticulously check labels to avoid HFCS and proudly buy products sweetened with real cane sugar. Internet articles and clean eating circles paint HFCS as a terrifying artificial monster, while treating cane sugar as an acceptable, traditional choice. To your crying liver, both of these are the exact same toxic waste. Cane sugar, sucrose, is made of 50% glucose and 50% fructose, while HFCS is typically 55% fructose and 45% glucose. That 5% difference is metabolically meaningless. They both assault the liver, drive non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and trigger metabolic syndrome with the exact same brutal efficiency. The aggressive smear campaign against HFCS was actually secretly funded by the Sugar Association in the 2000s to protect cane sugar sales from being wiped out by cheap corn syrup. The bitter war between HFCS and cane sugar is really just a choice of which poison you want to use to slowly kill yourself. 14. You think protein bars are the food of highly disciplined, healthy people. You chew on one after every gym session to build rippling muscles. The entire fitness industry has positioned these bars as an absolute necessity for building the perfect physique. The vast majority of protein bars on supermarket shelves are just rejected candy bars wearing a fitness disguise. To mask the terrible taste of cheap protein powder and chemical preservatives, manufacturers are forced to pack them with corn syrup, sugar alcohols, and artificial sweeteners. The massive blood sugar spike you get after eating them actually suppresses natural growth hormone, directly hindering your muscle recovery rather than helping it. Candy conglomerates literally bought out sports nutrition brands in the 90s and applied their exact candy recipes, just with tougher-looking packaging. Just because it has the word muscle printed in bold letters doesn't mean it won't make you a diabetic. 15. You were taught that only sweets raise your blood sugar and that savory carbohydrates are completely safe. You carefully decline dessert, but happily eat 2 large bowls of white rice or a whole baguette with dinner. Traditional dietary guidelines draw a hard line between sugary treats and staple foods like wheat and white rice. Your body does not have taste buds in its bloodstream to tell the difference between sweet and savory. Refined starches like white rice, bread, and French fries have terrifyingly high glycemic indexes, and enzymes in your saliva break them down into pure glucose almost instantly. The insulin spike you get from eating a plain bagel is actually more violent and damaging than the spike from eating a Snickers bar. Massive wheat and rice agricultural lobbies spent heavily to ensure refined starches remained at the wide bottom of the food pyramid, guaranteeing everyone eats them daily. You proudly skip the tiny sugar cube in your coffee, but gladly chew your way through a giant, savory sugar block at lunch. 16. You believe that at worst, sugar causes obesity and diabetes, but has absolutely nothing to do with cancer. You think cancer is entirely a game of genetic roulette or environmental toxins. Major cancer organizations and health agencies are often incredibly timid, sometimes avoiding the topic of dietary sugar entirely. Sugar is the absolute favorite fuel source for mutated cancer cells to multiply. Discovered in 1924, the Warburg effect proves that cancer cells depend heavily on the fermentation of glucose for growth, consuming sugar at a rate tens of times higher than normal healthy cells. Furthermore, the chronically high insulin from eating sugar stimulates IGF-1, a growth factor that acts like a hyperspeed fertilizer for tumors to spread. Multinational food companies have funded countless cancer research foundations, expertly steering scientists to focus only on finding expensive chemical cures rather than preventing it through sugar reduction. Keeping your blood sugar high is basically rolling out the red carpet and catering a massive banquet for cancer cells. 17. You are convinced that brushing your teeth really well fixes all the damage caused by eating sweets. You let your kids eat candy and just yell at them to go brush their teeth immediately afterward. The Dental Association and toothpaste brands endlessly promote brushing for a healthy smile as the ultimate fix-all for a bad diet. Your toothbrush is completely powerless to save an immune system that is being destroyed by sugar from the inside out. Tooth decay isn't just caused by bacteria eating sugar on your enamel and creating surface acid. Eating massive amounts of sugar causes systemic inflammation and blocks your body's ability to absorb calcium and phosphorus from your blood. When that mineral balance breaks, your teeth rot from the pulp outward, no matter how hard you scrub the surface. Toothpaste conglomerates have a beautiful symbiotic relationship with the sugar industry. Sugar creates the patience, and toothpaste sells the surface-level illusion of protection. Brushing your teeth 3 times a day after drinking soda is as useless as aggressively mopping the floor while a pipe is actively bursting. 18. You think brown sugar is packed with beneficial minerals and is vastly healthier than refined white sugar. You are willing to pay extra for an artisanal coffee sweetened with organic brown sugar. High-end craft coffee shops and healthy baking blogs proudly note that they only use pure brown sugar in their recipes. The brown sugar on the supermarket shelf is literally just cheap white sugar that has been dyed. The industrial refining process strips away all the molasses to create pure white sugar crystals. To make brown sugar, manufacturers simply spray a tiny amount of that leftover molasses back onto the white sugar to give it a caramel color and trick your eyes. The trace minerals in that thin coating are so minuscule you would have to eat several pounds of brown sugar a day to get any meaningful iron or calcium. This backwards production trick was invented by the sugar industry to repurpose waste molasses and create a premium product segment. You are happily paying double the price for the exact same inflammatory crystal, just because it put on a brown jacket. 19. You have been told that teenage or adult acne is simply caused by fluctuating hormones or a dirty face. You buy dozens of expensive face washes and chemical exfoliants to scrub your skin raw. Dermatologists and the billion-dollar skincare industry consistently blame overactive sebaceous glands, clogged pores, and bad genetics. The real invisible trigger detonating your worst cystic acne breakouts is a high-sugar diet. When your blood sugar spikes, your body releases a flood of insulin and IGF-1, which directly order the sebaceous glands on your face to overproduce oil and increase the hyperkeratinization of your pores. This oil-drenched, cellularly inflamed environment created by sugar is the perfect launchpad for P. acnes bacteria to multiply and ruin your face. The skincare industry never wants you to know this because a tiny tube of acne cream makes them thousands of times more money than the advice to stop drinking boba tea. Keep slathering expensive creams on your face, while your blood continues to pump premium fertilizer to your pimples from the inside. 20. You believe that the FDA and government health agencies are working tirelessly to protect you from toxic ingredients. You assume that if a product contained a lethal amount of sugar, they would ban it or put a warning label on it. The vast majority of consumers blindly trust the approved nutrition labels, stamps, and ingredient lists on their food packaging. These regulatory agencies have been handcuffed and completely captured by the food industry for decades. For years, the FDA refused to establish a daily value percentage for added sugars on nutrition labels, leaving consumers completely blind to how much they were overdosing. Even today, corporations exploit loopholes allowing them to use over 60 different chemical names for sugar, like maltodextrin, dextrose, or agave nectar, to split the sugar content up so it doesn't appear as the first ingredient. The lobbying power of Big Sugar in Washington, D.C. is so absolute that they can literally rewrite or delete public health bills before they are even introduced to the floor. You are naively trusting your life to a security guard who is actively taking bribes from the pickpocket. 21. You think boxed plant milks like oat or almond milk are a light, low-calorie choice that is superior to cow's milk. You proudly order an oat milk latte to save the environment. The vegan movement and green lifestyle branding have elevated nut milks to the absolute throne of clean and healthy beverages. Most commercial plant milks are essentially just filtered water, mixed with sugar and chemical thickeners. Because natural almonds or oats taste incredibly bland and watery when strained, manufacturers are forced to pump them full of cane sugar, syrups, and flavorings to create a fake creamy sweetness. A flavored oat milk at a coffee shop can inject your bloodstream with a hit of carbohydrates and sugar almost as fast as a can of soda. These new plant milk brands memorize the beverage industry's oldest playbook: minimize real ingredients, maximize sugar to drive addiction. You skipped the cow's milk because you were scared of hormones, but you chugged a glass of chemical sugar water and hallucinated that you were saving the earth. 22. You believe that because fresh fruit contains natural sugar, you can eat absolutely as much of it as you want. You happily blend 3 bananas and 2 mangoes into a massive summer smoothie. Weight loss websites generously promote fruit as an unlimited, guilt-free snack that you don't even need to count. Your liver has a very strict biological limit on how much fructose it can process, regardless of whether it comes from nature or a lab. Ancient wild fruits were small, highly fibrous, and barely sweet. Modern fruits have been agriculturally engineered for centuries to be massive, juicy, and dozens of times sweeter to appease human sugar addiction. When you consume too much of this hyper-sweet hybrid fruit at once, the massive fructose dump overwhelms your liver, driving insulin resistance and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The unconditional worship of fruit is the highly successful result of massive lobbying campaigns by global agricultural associations to drive up consumption. Yes, a mango is better than a chemical Skittle, but stuffing 3 mangoes into a blender at once will still make your liver beg for mercy. 23. You are convinced that attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, in children is entirely congenital or a genetic flaw. You are confused when you see kids unable to sit still, losing focus, and throwing explosive tantrums. School psychologists and the medical system immediately rush to slap a pathology label on these children and prescribe heavy sedatives. A massive, overlooked trigger for this behavioral chaos is the sheer volume of sugar in school lunches and childhood snacks. The insane blood sugar roller coaster, from sugary cereal in the morning to juice boxes at noon and candy in the afternoon creates continuous cycles of fake euphoria and severe hypoglycemic crashes. A developing child's brain is incredibly sensitive to the havoc caused by artificial food dyes and wild insulin swings, expressing it outwardly as uncontrollable impulsivity. Junk food companies completely conquered school cafeterias through lucrative catering contracts, turning children into loyal sugar addicts by elementary school. We blame the broken brains of the children, when the real culprit is sitting right on their lunch trays. 24. You think commercial stevia is a perfect, natural miracle that replaces white sugar. You tear open those crisp white packets of stevia, believing it is 100% extracted from a pure plant. Food brands scream on their packaging that stevia is the only absolutely safe sweetener, bringing the purity of nature straight to your teacup. The packet of stevia you are using is actually 99% erythritol or maltodextrin, sprinkled with maybe 1% actual stevia leaf extract. The natural stevia leaf is sweet, but carries a very harsh, bitter aftertaste. To create the white, easily dissolvable, non-bitter crystalline powder you see, it must go through intense bleaching, harsh chemical solvent extraction, and be cut with ultra-cheap filler carbohydrates. The chemical industry hijacked the name stevia from South American culture, mutilated it into an industrial chemical product, and sells it at an outrageous markup. They sold you a poetic dream about a green leaf, but handed you a bag of bleached lab chemicals. 25. You were taught that to build strong bones, you must drink massive amounts of cow's milk every day for the calcium. You constantly buy sweetened strawberry or chocolate milk so your kids will drink it. The dairy industry planted deep seeds of terror about osteoporosis to herd everyone into drinking milk instead of water. The added sugar in these commercial-flavored milks is actually actively increasing your risk of osteoporosis. When your blood sugar spikes, your body enters a state of mild systemic inflammation and acidity. To neutralize this dangerous state, your body is biologically forced to leach calcium and minerals directly from your bones back into your blood. So instead of building calcium, drinking sugary milk actively triggers the strip mining of your skeletal system. The National Dairy Council launched the legendary Got Milk campaign to brainwash the public, linking milk to strong bones while completely burying the devastating effects of the sugar packed into their products. You drink sugary milk hoping for strong bones, but your bones are being eroded daily just to clean up the mess the milk left behind. 26. You believe that your intense late-night cravings are a sign of weak willpower, lack of discipline, or emotional stress. You torture and blame yourself every time you surrender to a pint of ice cream in the fridge. Behavioral psychologists typically label this emotional eating and advise you to meditate or journal your feelings away. That frantic hunger is not a moral failure. It is the biological screaming of a hormone system that has been completely broken by sugar. Consuming too much fructose blocks the signal of leptin, your body's satiety hormone, tricking your brain into thinking you are literally starving to death even when your stomach is full. Simultaneously, insulin resistance prevents your cells from receiving energy, creating a fake starvation signal that forces you to seek out high-calorie sugary foods immediately for survival. The food industry hired engineers to deliberately design products with the perfect ratio of sugar, salt, and fat, called the bliss point, to directly hack this biological system and completely disable your fullness cues. Blaming yourself for having no willpower is as ridiculous as blaming yourself for wanting to breathe while being choked. 27. You think coconut sugar is the golden key to weight loss and protecting the cardiovascular health of diabetics. You listen to food bloggers, throw out all your white sugar, and switch your entire pantry to this expensive alternative. A flood of PR articles praises coconut sugar because it contains trace zinc, iron, and a slightly lower glycemic index, GI, than normal white sugar. It is still a fructose bomb waiting to detonate inside your liver. Coconut sugar is roughly 70–80% sucrose, which breaks down into half fructose and half glucose anyway. Even though the slightly lower GI means your blood glucose rises a bit slower, that massive payload of fructose still goes straight to your liver, building visceral fat and causing insulin resistance exactly like cheap refined sugar. Superfood brands pulled a massive bait-and-switch, deliberately using the glycemic index to hide the true metabolic devastation of fructose. Swapping white sugar for coconut sugar to treat metabolic disease is exactly like switching from cigars to filtered cigarettes to cure lung cancer. 28. You believe that high-intensity cardio, like HIIT or long-distance running, is the only way to combat the consequences of eating too many sweets. You grit your teeth and believe that sweating heavily will detox the sugar out of your body. Gyms always use slogans like, "Come burn off yesterday's donut," to sell expensive memberships. Doing constant cardio while maintaining a high-sugar diet forces your body into a state of chronic stress, making all your weight loss efforts collapse. A high-sugar diet keeps your body constantly inflamed. When you force an inflamed body to perform at high intensity, your adrenal glands panic and release massive amounts of cortisol. Sky-high cortisol combined with high insulin orders your body to store every gram of energy as stubborn belly fat and actively break down muscle tissue to survive. Sugary sports drink brands planted this toxic exercise to offset a bad diet mindset so they could keep selling sugar water to athletes. You thought you were running to escape your body fat, but you are actually running straight into the arms of adrenal fatigue. 29. You have been taught that high cholesterol, specifically bad LDL, is caused by eating too many egg yolks and animal butter. You avoid organ meats, throw away the yolks, and only use refined vegetable oils to protect your heart. Mainstream medical guidelines for decades advised patients with high cholesterol to avoid all foods containing natural cholesterol. The cholesterol in your food has almost zero impact on the cholesterol in your blood. Sugar is the real boss ordering your liver to manufacture the worst kind of cholesterol. When the liver is overwhelmed by fructose, it is forced to convert that sugar into fat, creating a massive amount of small, dense LDL particles. This is the true killer cholesterol that easily slips into your artery walls, becomes oxidized, and causes the arterial plaques that lead to strokes. The dietary cholesterol causes heart disease theory is the direct result of scientist Ancel Keys manipulating data in the 1950s, heavily funded by the grain industry to demonize animal foods. The innocent egg spent half a century in dietary prison, while the sugary lemon tea, the real serial killer, walked free. 30. You think the modern epidemic of depression and anxiety disorders is entirely due to random chemical imbalances in the brain. You rely on antidepressants to find artificial peace. The psychiatric industry and Big Pharma constantly emphasize the congenital serotonin deficiency theory to justify selling lifelong SSRI prescriptions. Your diet full of refined sugar is creating a storm of systemic inflammation that is directly short-circuiting the neural networks in your brain. Sugar severely damages the gut microbiome, which is the exact location where 90% of your body's serotonin, the happiness hormone, is produced. Furthermore, wild blood sugar fluctuations deplete your B vitamins and magnesium while triggering inflammatory cytokines that travel straight to the brain, causing panic, brain fog, and deep depression. Massive pharmaceutical conglomerates have zero interest in advising patients to quit sugar. Because a chronically inflamed body is a highly profitable, lifelong customer. They sell you an expensive pill to fix your brain, but completely ignore that your stomach is manufacturing the misery every single day. 31. You believe that store-bought salad dressing is a convenient, wonderful way to make bland greens taste delicious and healthy. You proudly drench your lettuce in Thousand Island or sesame dressing. Manufacturers package these in glass bottles, featuring crisp images of fresh vegetables, implying that this is the absolute essence of a diet plan. Most bottles of dressing on the supermarket shelf are just an emulsion of inflammatory industrial seed oils disguised with liquid sugar. To create a seductive, creamy texture and cover up the taste of ultra-cheap oils, like soybean or canola, manufacturers pump in massive amounts of corn syrup or refined sugar. A single serving of commercial salad dressing can easily turn a light bowl of greens into a sugar and trans fat bomb that clogs your arteries. The food industry successfully weaponized a healthy leafy green into the perfect excuse to force you to consume their industrial garbage condiments. You pat yourself on the back for eating a salad, but you are really just eating liquid candy garnished with a few leaves. 32. You think chronic fatigue and a constant lack of energy are just the obvious consequences of a busy, stressful modern life. You drink cup after cup of coffee just to drag yourself through the workday. Modern society glorifies the hustle and treats exhaustion as a badge of honor for hardworking, dedicated people. That bone-deep exhaustion is actually the desperate cry of the mitochondria in your cells suffocating to death on sugar. Mitochondria are your body's true energy factories. When you consume sugar constantly, insulin resistance and oxidative stress completely destroy mitochondrial function, meaning they can no longer convert food into ATP energy efficiently. Your body is storing plenty of calories and fat, but your cells are literally starving to death on a microscopic level. The fast food and caffeinated beverage industries joined forces to profit off this syndrome, selling you short-term, borrowed alertness. You are exactly like a car with a completely dead battery, just revving the engine harder instead of stopping to fix the machinery. 33. You believe that frozen yogurt, froyo, is a smart, guilt-free alternative to fatty ice cream. You happily wait in long lines at froyo shops and confidently load it up with fresh fruit toppings. Frozen yogurt chains exploded in popularity, with marketing messages screaming "low fat, zero guilt," and claiming it contains probiotics for gut health. Frozen yogurt is actually just ice cream that changed its name, loaded with horrifying amounts of sugar to compensate for the fat they stripped out. To recreate the soft texture and rich flavor lost when milk fat is removed, froyo manufacturers have to dump in a larger volume of sugar and chemical stabilizers than traditional ice cream uses. That massive volume of sugar combined with freezing temperatures is more than enough to completely annihilate any live probiotics that might have accidentally survived. In the early 1980s, the paranoia over low-fat diets created a golden opportunity for companies to launch froyo, turning a terrible dessert into a symbol of wellness. You are eating a bowl of frozen, nutritionally hollow syrup, but lying to yourself that it's a health supplement. 34. You think granola is the ultimate hiking snack and the breakfast of incredibly healthy people. You sprinkle it on everything from yogurt to smoothies. Images of rock climbers, yoga practitioners, and organic lifestyle branding are always deeply associated with granola. Most commercial granola is just oats deep-fried in cheap seed oils and marinated in tons of syrup and honey. Raw oats are inherently bland and dry. To create those glossy, crunchy clusters that stick together, Manufacturers have to mix them with a massive amount of industrial fat and liquid sugar, then bake them at high heat. Its calorie and sugar count rivals a massive butter cookie. Granola originated in 1960s hippie culture using raw ingredients, but Big Food quickly commercialized it, mutating it into a candy disguised as nature. You thought you were eating the breakfast of nature lovers, but you are actually just chewing on renamed cookie crumbs. 35. You were taught that sports drinks are absolutely mandatory to replenish water and electrolytes after any physical activity. You chug a neon blue bottle after a light 30-minute walk. From professional sports leagues to local gyms, everyone holds a sports drink as a symbol of athletic seriousness. That brightly colored bottle is actually just salt water mixed with 8 teaspoons of refined sugar. While your body does need to replenish sodium and potassium after sweating heavily, the massive sugar payload in a sports drink will immediately erase any fat-burning benefits from your workout. The insulin spike right after exercise commands your body to stop using fat for fuel and immediately switch back to fat storage mode. Sports drinks were invented for elite athletes performing at extreme intensities, but PepsiCo bought the formula and mainstreamed it into an everyday beverage for sedentary people. You just worked out to burn off fat, and then used that exact bottle to pump the fat right back into your body. 36. You believe dark chocolate is a safe superfood that is completely beneficial for your heart. You reward yourself with a 50% dark chocolate bar every night without a second thought. Health articles constantly praise the power of antioxidants, flavonoids, found in cacao. A 50% or 60% dark chocolate bar is still, by definition, half pure white sugar. Pure cacao is incredibly bitter and unpalatable to the masses. To sell products, manufacturers have to mix in a very large amount of sugar, even if the cacao percentage is higher than milk chocolate. The minor benefit from a few antioxidants is completely crushed by the sheer volume of sugar spiking your insulin and inflaming your liver. The candy industry did a masterful job of using cacao antioxidant research as the perfect shield to continue selling sugar under the guise of wellness. They sold you a few milligrams of antioxidants, but attached dozens of grams of obesogenic sugar to the deal. 37. You think multivitamin gummies are a fun, convenient way to supplement nutrients for both adults and kids. You chew them every morning and consider it an act of self-care. Pharmacies and supermarkets display them in the most prominent aisles, targeting the nutritional anxiety of busy parents and young professionals. Those gummy vitamins are essentially just sugar-coated corn syrup candies, dusted with a microscopic layer of synthetic vitamins. To hide the incredibly harsh metallic taste of cheap chemical vitamins, manufacturers have to use massive amounts of corn syrup, gelatin, and refined sugar. Consuming sugar alongside vitamins doesn't just rot your teeth. The sugar actually actively inhibits your body's ability to absorb vitamin C because they compete for the same cellular transport pathways. The pharmaceutical industry slyly exploited parental guilt to sell chemical candy at the premium price of a health supplement. You are paying top dollar to buy candy at a pharmacy, while lying to yourself that you are taking medicine. 38. You assume that ketchup is simply a product made from crushed tomatoes and a little salt. You freely squirt massive amounts of it all over your eggs and French fries. Everyone defaults to treating ketchup as a harmless vegetable-based condiment that accompanies fast food and family meals. The bottle of ketchup you are using is actually a tomato-flavored frosting, with 25% of its entire volume being pure sugar. Cheap industrial tomatoes taste very sour and watery. To make this mixture highly addictive and thick, companies pump it full of high-fructose corn syrup. HFCS. With just 2 tablespoons of ketchup, you have ingested the sugar equivalent of eating a sweet cookie. H.J. Heinz added vinegar and a massive amount of sugar to the recipe in the late 19th century to mask the rancid taste of poor-quality tomatoes and extend shelf life. You thought you were dipping your food in a vegetable sauce, but you are really dunking your fries into a bowl of concentrated sugar water. 39. You believe that products labeled "no added sugar" are completely sugar-free and absolutely safe for dieters. You immediately grab the juice box or cookies sporting this phrase. The law allows manufacturers to print this phrase in massive letters to attract health-conscious consumers. No added sugar simply means they didn't dump dry white table sugar into the vat. Instead, they use fruit juice concentrate, a form of pure fructose that wrecks your liver even faster. Fruit juice concentrate is stripped entirely of water and fiber, leaving behind a highly concentrated fructose sludge. It legally counts as natural sugar, but to your body, its ability to cause liver inflammation and visceral fat is just as brutal as corn syrup. This is a beautiful legal loophole left open by the FDA, allowing food corporations to scam customers openly and legally. They didn't add sugar to the product. They just replaced it with a more toxic variant and called it by a different name. 40. You think infant formula and toddler milk are perfectly designed by scientists to boost brain development. You buy expensive cans to ensure your child grows up tall and smart. Television ads featuring doctors always present powdered milk as the absolute optimal, perfect nutritional replacement. Many formulas, and especially toddler milks, list corn syrup solids or refined sugar as a primary ingredient. Natural breast milk contains a moderate amount of lactose, but to cut costs and force babies to drink more, formula manufacturers replace it with cheap, highly concentrated chemical sugars. Cramming sugar into an infant's developing digestive system doesn't just risk early obesity. It rewires their taste receptors, ensuring they are addicted to sweets for life. Multinational dairy corporations invented the toddler milk category not for nutrition, but to bypass laws restricting infant formula advertising, securing lifelong customers through sugar addiction. We are actively poisoning the metabolic systems of children in their most formative years and calling it scientific nourishment. 41. You believe that Alzheimer's and dementia are entirely caused by genetics or unavoidable aging. You view losing your memory in old age as a random death sentence from nature. The traditional medical system and media always describe Alzheimer's as a mysterious degenerative disease with no cure. Modern medicine is increasingly calling Alzheimer's by a much more terrifying name: type 3 diabetes. Decades of sugar consumption cause your body to become insulin-resistant, and eventually, your brain cells also start rejecting insulin. When the brain becomes insulin-resistant, neurons cannot absorb glucose for energy, leading to brain cells slowly starving to death, shrinking, and forming the amyloid plaques that are the hallmark of Alzheimer's. The medical establishment and pharmaceutical companies missed this metabolic link for decades, pouring billions into researching drugs that clean up surface plaque instead of addressing the root cause. Sugar. You didn't just randomly lose your memory because you got old. Your brain is slowly starving to death because it was soaking in high blood sugar for too long. 42. You absolutely trust the law of calories in, calories out, CICO. You think that 100 calories from an apple and 100 calories from a soda are exactly the same when it comes to weight gain. Every major health organization, conservative nutritionist, and calorie-counting app relies on this simple mathematical equation to advise weight loss. This is the greatest, most blatant, and cruelest lie the food industry ever planted in our heads. The human body is not a closed thermal incinerator. It is a complex chemical laboratory controlled entirely by hormones. 100 calories of fiber and protein will trigger satiety hormones, boost metabolism, and build cells. Meanwhile, 100 calories of liquid fructose will directly shut down satiety hormones, command the pancreas to release insulin, and convert all that energy directly into belly fat. The CICO theory is the ultimate trump card heavily funded by junk food corporations to absolve themselves of all responsibility, allowing them to claim their products aren't at fault. You just didn't do the math right. They tricked you into becoming a blind calorie-counting machine, just so they could keep selling you the cheapest, most toxic calories on the planet. This system isn't broken or glitching. It is designed to operate exactly this way. From governments and food conglomerates to pharmaceutical companies, everyone is making billions of dollars in profit off your ignorance and your sick, sugar-craving body. By manipulating science and marketing fear, they have stripped away our control over our own health. But now, you know the truth. Your strongest weapon isn't an expensive pill. It is the power to say no to their sweet lies. Do you know any other secrets about sugar or the food industry that I missed? Drop them in the comments below so we can expose them together. If you found this valuable, don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep shattering these myths. Your health is your choice. Don't hand it over to a corporation. See you next time.